You see what happens? We pulled them into New York City, the Plaza Hotel in 1985, we and some other people, and said, you're going to stop doing that tomorrow. And the value of the yen went from 240 down to about 80. And the Japanese miracle was over and it never came back. They're done. Now, 10, 15 years later, guess what? China goes, hey, that worked pretty good for Japan. Why don't we do that? Japan stole all the wealth and all the jobs out of America for 10 or 15 years. They were the economic tiger. Why don't we do that? You see that? That's the currency. That's the relationship of the yuan or the renminbi, whatever it is, to the dollar. And so you see that straight up there? That's not a market deal. That's called currency manipulation. Okay? Simple enough. That happened in 1994. And we've had suboptimal job growth most of this past decade. We don't need a trade war with China. We don't need currency wars with anything. We don't need tariffs on anybody. It's a simple thing. We need China and Korea to be trade partners with us. Partners. I buy stuff from you and you get jobs, and you buy stuff from me and we get jobs. Simple as that. And if we don't get something like that, we're going to have substandard job growth for quite a long time in the future. For example, Jeff Immelt with GE. So you read in the news, General Electric's going to build 1 million turbines in China. So what? If they're designed by Chinese designers and engineered by Chinese engineers and built by Chinese manufacturers, how does that benefit you whatsoever? If you don't own bonds or stock in General Electric, it doesn't help you at all. Meanwhile, what do? In your English class, how many people, these economists will say, oh, global trade lifts all boats. Well, what's our comparative advantage? Technology and innovation. Think about your English class in high school. Out of 30 people, how many people of those 30 are going to be globally competitive in technology and innovation? A high school class I was in, maybe one, all right? What are you going to do with the other 29? Those people need to have a job in this country. So we're going to have to do something a little different. There's just an example of this. These automakers are worried about that because part of the deal is I want to build a bunch of cars and sell them over there. Going to be made and engineered by Chinese workers, and that's great for them. But also the Chinese make me give away all of my technology too. That's what's starting to spook all these people. It's like, hey, what do you have left? If you give all the technology, all the engineering, all the design is done there, how does that benefit America? We need China to become a trade partner. How about equal trade instead of free trade? We just need Chinese people to buy stuff from us. And the reason it's kind of insidious is because China, rather than I'm America, you're China, I buy stuff from you, you don't buy anything from me, you get all the jobs, but you recirculate the money, and guess what you buy? You don't buy anything from me, you buy treasuries from Congress. And so Congress has an incentive to keep that going. See, they'd much rather have that money. They've got a willing buyer for a lot of treasuries every year as China keeps this currency peg in place. So in my mind, our Congress has an incentive to see to it that they don't buy anything from me, because if that happens, I create jobs. And they don't have a buyer for those treasuries anymore. Now, that's my first story. Now, here's my second story that we're going to have to work through. I'm calling it Bang the Pinata. And that's the biggest pinata on earth, I guess. And that's the U.S. economy right there from the 1960s. And all those people around there are voters and Congress. And they're just sit there, and here's the deal. Here's our political situation as I see it now. If you promise the voters more candy, they'll reelect you. Don't worry that you have no way to pay for your promises. Now, here's my examples. I've talked about these enough. I'm not going to go through them, but how about this one? $43 trillion in unfunded liability for Social Security and Medicare. Forget about the federal debt at $13 trillion, gone from 7 to 13, and you're all on a Twitter about that. What about the $43 trillion in unfunded liability that they promise you for health care and Social Security that they can't pay for it? Something's got to change. How about prosecuting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan off budget, off credit, off balance sheet? What about Franny's losses off balance sheet, off budget? Healthcare is supposed to pay for itself. They look me right in the eye. on TV and said, hey, this healthcare thing is going to pay for itself. That was premised on the idea of the doctor's haircut that Mr. McClure mentioned. Ask your own doctor about that. Say, wait till after they've drawn your blood, not before, all right? Ask your own doctor. Say, how's the doctor haircut going to work for you? Minus 20%. 23, I guess it is. See, that whole thing, when they looked you right in the eye and said health care is going to pay for itself, was all premised on your doctor getting a 23% cut in his and her compensation. And sure enough, I asked my doctor about it, and he said, don't worry about it. They've been threatening to do that for years. They never do. And sure enough, 60 days or so after they passed the thing, just quietly, you didn't hear it, that Congress punted on the doctor's haircut, and it was never going to happen in the first place. So it's all smoke and mirrors. Well, actually, that's another story I got, a short story. States and cities with underfunded pensions. All these people think they're going to earn 8% return on their portfolios. Good luck with that. And when the 10 years offering you 2.5%, and you've got what? A stock market that's had 0 return for 10 years. And so you're figuring, oh yeah, we'll get 8% a year and we'll be able to have all kinds of retirees and so forth like that. Let's hope so. Banks and Wall Street have taught us the perils of off-balance sheet financing, and now the federal government's doing exactly the same thing. This is what it looks like. This is what the U.S. economy looks like today, when you finally break the piñata and all the candy's gone. Now, here's the challenge for 2011, because this is what the voters look like and some of Congress look like when the candy's gone. Right there. I found this one on the internet. She's saying, all I wanted to do was play Viva Piñata. That's what we want to do. You see, there's a real possibility that all these hotshot Republicans that you're all banking on, that's going to be a big time difference. There's a real possibility that those people that elected them, the Tea Party folks, and by the way, I'm happy with tea. I like tea. In fact, my wife and I dropped a tea bag in a College Station. I didn't even know I would be labeled a right-wing extremist, but it's kind of fun. I've enjoyed it this year. But here's the thing. What if those people come to Congress and they say, hey, we got to cut a lot of stuff, including something that's important to you? All of a sudden, you might change your mind and be just like that little girl there. What about the mortgage deduction for home mortgages? What about deductions and tax credits for energy and all these other things? What if they want to cut your deal? You just saw it the other day, that deficit panel thing. That was honest. That's the closest thing to honesty and a go signal for the future of our country that I've ever seen. And look what the politicians are doing. There ain't no way we're going to do that. That's dead on arrival or whatever it is. You see, we're going to find out in 2011 whether there's enough people in this country that have enough courage to stop playing bang the piñata or not. And if we don't, then gold is going to keep going up, and Ben Bernanke will have to print even more money. So here's what we've got to look for. Foreclosure postponements, foreclosure moratoriums, federal subsidies to states and cities, extended unemployment benefits, and tax credits to buy stuff. We're going to get rid of that stuff. That's called austerity. And austerity is not pleasant. Your parents have gone through this. Your grandparents have gone through this. For some reason, your political people that represent you think you don't have enough courage, enough guts to go through a little pain. So they're just going to print money and keep trying to refill that piñata, no matter what it costs. I hope I'm wrong. This is what my naive hope is, that there are enough people that say, stop banging the piñata. Because